صربيا هي دولة تقع في مفترق الطرق بين وسط وجنوب شرق أوروبا، وتغطي الجزء الجنوبي من سهل بانونيا والبلقان المركزي. تتنوع السياحة في صربيا بين الصخب المدن الكبرى وبين الهدوء الذي يشتهر به الريف الصربي. معروف عن العاصمة أن تكون أفضل مدينة وأكثرهم شهرة بين السياح، وتستحق مدينة بلغراد أن تحتل هذه المكانة، فهي تمتلك العديد من معالم السياحة في صربيا، ومن أشهر المتاحف بلغراد متحف يوغوسلافيا. فداخل هذا المتحف الزعيم تيتو في صربيا مقتنياته تضم صورا للزعيم الراحل جمال عبد الناصر وسط الزعماء. تيتو الذي جمعته صداقة بالرئيس جمال عبد الناصر قام مع رئيس الوزراء الهندي جوهر نهرو بتأسيس حركة عدم الانحياز التي تعتبر واحدة من نتائج الحرب العالمية الثانية.
حاليا احنا داخل مقر او مكان قبر الرئيس تيتو. ده كان مكان المنزل، وكانت يعني المكان اللي احنا واقفين او كان المكان اللي احنا واقفين فيه ده هو حديقة الشتاء لهذا الرئيس.
متحف يوغوسلافيا تم افتتاح المتحف 25 مايو عام 1962، وقد شيدته مدينة بلغراد كهدية لجوزيف تيتو رئيس يوغوسلافيا بمناسبة عيد ميلاده 70. تم استخدام هذا المتحف لعرض الهدايا التي تلقاها تيتو حتى عام 1962.
لقد يكون مع مديرة متحف الرئيس تيتو. Welcome to our program.
You're welcome here in the Museum of Yugoslavia.
Your name, please.
Aleksandra Momčilović Jovanović.
Tell us more about the place here. You told me it's a winter garden of the President Tito, and it's a grave or the tomb of President Tito.
Yes, it's interesting that this building was his residence in the late years of his life when he got old and couldn't move up the stairs in his big building, so this was something more appropriate for an old man. So it was really with a lot of flowers and green in the middle, and apartments and offices were on the right. On the left there were apartments that his wife should have lived in, Jovanka Broz. So after he died, it was decided that he would be buried here, and this is the place of great pilgrimage, let's say, and memory of Tito. Even still today, people in large numbers come on the 25th of May, which is his birthday, to pay respects to a leader of Yugoslavia that he was for a couple of decades now.
Tell us more about more information about the museum here, and when did it founded, and the most important pieces here.
Mm-hmm. Well, as you know, Yugoslavia collapsed in the 90s, in the wars of the 90s, so the museum coincided, the foundation of the museum coincided with these dates. So in the mid-90s of last century, the Museum of History of Yugoslavia was found here on a former president estate. And it consists of the artifacts that belong to the Memorial Center of Josip Broz Tito and another former museum of revolutions of peoples of Yugoslavia. So we mostly have history documentation on socialist revolution here, and in large number gifts that Tito received during his life. So let's say what dominates our collection are the gifts from non-aligned countries, so from Africa and Asia mostly, and this is something that's a rarity here in Serbia even today, and shows how close and intense were diplomatic relations that were established during socialist Yugoslavia.
Do we have any presence from Egypt?
Of course we have, and it's quite known that Tito and especially Gamal Abdel Nasser were even close friends in political sense, but some say even in private sense. And very many presents were exchanged during this period in the 50s and 60s, and the foundation on non-aligned movement, as I said, as a third way and the alternative to bloc politics that were at its peak, let's say, in the 50s and 60s. So from Egypt we have very valuable archaeological, of course, artifacts. We'll see some of them later. But what's interesting also, and what shows the closeness of this relationship, is that very many fruits, beverages were exchanged at that time from Yugoslavia to Egypt, mangoes from Egypt in large numbers. But in this just, let's say, private, presidential, not economical and trade sense, but this as gifts between presidents.
Let's start our visit to the museum.
مجموعة خاصة كانت معروضة في هذا المتحف. في عام 1982 تم تأسيس مركز جوزيف تيتو التذكاري، وأصبح متحف 25 مايو جزءاً من المركز. الكوموفوريك يوغوسلافيا، منزل ولادة تيتو، في حيث دفن تيتو، كان أيضا جزءا من المركز التذكاري. سمي مبنى المتحف القديم بهذا الاسم بعد افتتاح متحف 25 مايو المتحف الجديد.
متحف الخاص بالرئيس الراحل تيتو. هنا المكان اللي كان فيه الهدايا الخاصة اللي اتبعتت من مصر للرئيس تيتو، والهدايا دي من الرئيس الراحل جمال عبد الناصر. Alexander, we are talking about the presents who came to President Tito from our President Gamal Abdel Nasser, and we have here a pharaonic statue, a god of our gods, Osiris, and an alabaster vase.
Yes, an alabaster vase from 2750 BC. It's interesting that this is the first gift that Nasser gave to Tito in 55 when Tito visited Egypt for the first time, and it's an interesting historical anecdote, let's say, because of its weight and and dimensions. It was not given personally, but with a card that said that there is an ancient, very important archaeological artifact that would be given to Tito, and its weight 600 pounds. But it was not true. It was just an example of exaggeration of importance of Egypt in the eyes of Yugoslavia and protocol and Tito's cabinet. So it's not that large, but it's really important because it really represented the strongest connections that were established for the first time in history between these parts of the world and Egypt as a member of non-aligned movement.
دفن سكن جوزيف تيتو في أراضي مركز الميموريال. كان لدى المركز مجموعة من أكثر من 75 ألف عنصر توضح تاريخ يوغوسلافيا طوال القرن العشرين، مع التركيز الخاص على حياة تيتو، كما احتفظت بمجموعة كبيرة من الهدايا التي تلقاها تيتو. متحف تاريخ يوغوسلافيا يتضمن متحف ثورة الشعوب وجوزيف تيتو التذكاري. وننتقل من الحديث عن متحف يوغوسلافيا إلى الحديث عن متحف الفن ومتحف التصميم. متحف التاريخ الوطني في بلغراد، صربيا. المتحف الوطني في بلغراد هو أكبر وأقدم متحف في بلغراد. يقع في المنطقة الوسطى من بلغراد على قطعة أرض مربعة بين ساحة الجمهورية سابقا وساحة المسرح. تم إنشاء المتحف في 10 مايو 1844. انتقل إلى المبنى الحالي في عام 1950 مع الافتتاح الكبير للمكان في 23 مايو 1952. منذ تأسيسه نمت مجموعة المتحف إلى أكثر من 400 ألف قطعة، بما في ذلك محفوظة في الروائع الأجنبية. تم الإعلان عن مبنى المتحف الوطني في بلغراد معلما ثقافيا ذا أهمية كبيرة في عام 1979 لقيمته المعمارية والحضارية والتاريخية.
متحف بلغراد القومي، والحقيقة احنا هنا في الجزء الخاص بمصر. هيكون معانا مديرة المتحف وهي كمان مشرفة على هذا الجزء داخل المتحف أو هذا القسم داخل المتحف الخاص بالحضارة المصرية القديمة. Welcome to our program.
Thank you very much for a visit to the National Museum in Belgrade.
Your name, please.
My name is Bojana Borić Brešković, Director of National Museum.
We have in our background mummies, and we have mummies here inside the Museum of Belgrade. Tell us more about the history of these mummies.
Thank you very much for that question. We are very proud because Belgrade has a Belgrade mummy. That's the name of our mummy here in National Museum. And mummy and some modest but very important collection of Egyptian objects in National Museum is very important for us, for our public, and very interesting for all of us, for many guests of National Museum. And I can say that the first mummy, this mummy here, it's a gift to the National Museum from the end of the 19th century. From the end of 19th century, that's original from Luxor. Our very noble man bought this mummy for National Museum for the people of Serbia, especially with his donation letter, he said that. And it's very important that we know the name of mummy. The name is Nesmin. That means who is a priest of Temple of Min, not far from Luxor. And we know also that the priest was a very important person for the temple, and he was only 165 meters old and 15 years. And also we can date this our Nesmin about 330 till 300 BC. And it is also very important for us. And we have also an inscription, and from that inscription we know the name of Nesmin, that he was a priest. And the other, very important for us, is a coffin on this coffin here. That's coffin donation also to National Museum in 1921 from a nobleman from our country, and he bought this coffin Sotheby. It was in London, Sotheby auction, and now we have here in National Museum.
When was the museum built, and how many floors do you have, or steps?
Here in National Museum, our building is very important building. National Museum is in this building after the Second New War, and this building before was a bank. And for museums purposes, it is not so easy to to make all of that. Our collections are, we have many collections, from prehistory to the modern art, from prehistory from our soil, from soil of Central Balkan territory, and also prehistory, antiquity, medieval ages, and our Serbian art from 18th to 19th century, and also the Yugoslav art and Serbian art from 20th centuries, and a wonderful collection foreign art.
Do you have any cooperation with Egyptian museums in Egypt, like the Grand Egyptian Museum or the Tahrir Museum, or many? We have many museums in Egypt. So, do you have any cooperation, maybe with Luxor, Museum of Luxor?
In this moment, no, but you have here in Belgrade very important person, your His Excellency, your ambassador in Serbia. He is a very, very active person, and we have many contacts and many opportunities to see him, and we expect in future very important cooperation. Here also in National Museum, we have celebration of National Day of Egypt. We have also fantastic film from Egypt. We have a festival of archaeological film here. We have some important lectures about art, about everything.
So, did you visit Egypt before?
Not yet.
Not yet. So, I hope you will visit Egypt, and maybe you will see the temples and the mummies there.
Yes, I expect, of course. Now I have opportunity to see some of them, but coronavirus is not very, very. It is difficult for us.
يضم المتحف اليوم 34 مجموعة أثرية ونقود وفنية وتاريخية. المجموعات الأثرية المجموعة تتكون من منحوتات التي تعود إلى الألف السادس من الخامس قبل الميلاد وإلى الألفية السابعة قبل الميلاد. هناك أيضا عناصر من روما القديمة، 1005 عنصر من اليونان القديمة، عناصر مختلفة من أصل اليونان القديمة. أكثر القطع قيمة من تلك الفترة هي القرنين السادس عشر والثالث عشر قبل الميلاد والأدوات المنزلية. وهناك أيضا مجموعة من مصر القديمة، وأشهر قطعة هي تابوت ذهبي نادر، تابوت حجري ومومياء للكاهن المصري. وأيضا يحتوي المتحف على المسكوكات، تحتوي مجموعة العملات على أكثر من 300 ألف عنصر. تنقسم المجموعة إلى 10 مجموعات صغيرة من القرن السادس إلى الخامس قبل الميلاد.
We are here in the part of European part in the museum, National Museum of Belgrade. Your name, please.
Welcome at first. My name is Lidija Ham Milovanović. I am senior curator in National Museum in Belgrade and at the same time head of the Department for Public Outreach. We are now at one space of our huge, relatively huge, since the National Museum is the largest in Serbia. Our space for our permanent displays is about 5,000 square meters. And now we are exactly in the part where is exposed selection of European art. It is just selection, and it was collected during the last 176 years, 6 years as much as National Museum is old.
So the most important pictures or pieces which are found here are where?
Mm-hmm. We have very interesting collection of Italian old masters, and it started to collect in the late 19th century when we received one important donation of Italian old masters. Some of them are around us, like Tintoretto, Carpaccio, and many others. And especially between the two world wars, our policy of collecting enlargement of our foreign art collections was turned toward France. So the French artists which produced at the end of 19th century and beginning of 20th century are among us. The most popular among our public are representatives of Impressionism and Post-Impressionism like Monet, Gauguin. We have masters, a lot of pieces done by Renoir and Lautrec. We have even several Van Goghs and so on.
So every land has a photo here or something related to it?
Not exactly every land like we would like to, but some interesting European national schools like French. We have also some German, Austrian artists and many others. But
portrait, or?
Sorry?
All of them called portrait?
Not just portrait, just it was representatives of many other genres, styles, and so on through the history. So we can follow and have some impression about the tendencies throughout the European art. And it is in some way reflected on our artists here. But the National Museum is mostly based on cultures, art and history of the territory of today's Serbia. So since prehistory, some archaeological foundings from this space, and also some medieval period, and of course Serbian artists from 18th, 19th and 20th century, as much as Yugoslav artists are represented here in the permanent display.
يضم المتحف أيضا مجموعة كبيرة من القطع الأثرية من العصور الوسطى، معظمها من أوروبا وآسيا، وأهمها المخطوطة المصورة المكونة من 362 صفحة، كما يتضمن أيضا الإنجيل المكتوب عام 1186 في مملكة صربيا من العصور الوسطى. تم إدخال المخطوطة في سجل اليونسكو في ذاكرة العالم تقديرا لقيمتها التاريخية. جسور ممتدة بين مصر وصربيا.